Stop it. Quit faking illness to slow me down. You're just a housewife. My husband, Matt, brushed off my hand as I struggled, feeling unwell, and stormed out. I'd always thought marriage meant sticking together through thick and thin, but Matt left me hanging. Despair echoed in my mind as I started to black out. Someone unexpected reached out to help me in that moment. I'm Michelle, 32 years old. I tied the knot with my husband, also 32, a year ago, and we've been living a regular life since we met at work. He supported my decision to keep working after marriage. With both of us working, we split the household chores. But since my husband wasn't great at chores, I ended up asking him to handle only the easy tasks. Surprisingly, he pitched in without complaint, so I had no complaints about our marriage. Then one day, after dealing with some minor health issues, I went to the doctor and got the surprise of my life. Congratulations. You're about 7 weeks pregnant, the doctor announced. My husband and I shared our excitement. I'm going to be a dad. It's hard to wrap my head around it, but I'm sure it'll sink in gradually. We chatted, looking forward to the future. I believed a happy life awaited us, but reality turned out differently. Hey, what's for dinner? It's your turn, right? And the bathroom needs cleaning too. My husband reminded me. I'm sorry. I felt terrible today and couldn't do anything. I replied, battling severe morning sickness, constant nausea, and struggling to even stand. I spent my days in bed, unable to work. I kept missing days, but my husband didn't try to understand my suffering. He was unsympathetic. To him, it seemed like I was just slacking off both at work and at home. He began expressing his frustration more openly with heavy sighs. Hey, don't use pregnancy as an excuse to slack off. I have to work outside. You should handle the household chores, he scolded. I often wondered how he could say such hurtful things, but to my husband, who came home stressed from work, a wife unable to handle household chores must have been frustrating. I considered retreating to my parents' home until my health improved, but I worried it would drive a permanent wedge between us. Morning sickness is temporary, and it should ease up in another couple of months, so I resolved to tough it out until then. However, my husband's disdainful behavior only worsened over time. Although the morning sickness eventually faded, my health remained poor, leading to multiple hospital stays. I made the difficult choice to take a break from work. I couldn't risk jeopardizing the baby's health by overexerting myself during pregnancy. Even after discussing it thoroughly with my doctor and employer, my husband's complaints persisted. Stop depending on me for everything. If you can't work or manage chores, it's your problem, he griped. Maybe he had a point, but every decision I made was to safeguard our unborn child. Why do I deserve such treatment? Despite enduring his unfair behavior, I mustered the courage to bring up our living expenses. My sick pay isn't much. Could you chip in more from your salary? But he remained indifferent. Why should I have to cover your expenses too? Doubts about my future with this man crept in, and my anxiety grew with each passing day. I had hoped that getting pregnant would bring positive changes, but everything seemed to go wrong instead. The final blow came from my mother-in-law, Mary. Michelle, how are you feeling? She asked me one day. Mary had raised my husband single-handedly after divorcing when he was young. She's a caring and active person who has always treated me with kindness. But then she said something that struck a nerve. It's important to stay active during pregnancy. Matt must find it tough to handle chores while working, so you should do your part. Mary's words hit me like a tidal wave. I know she means well. She's been through childbirth herself and has valuable experience. But in that moment, all I could hear was, stop being lazy. Handle all the chores if you're not working. It only made things worse. You're absolutely right, I replied, pretending to agree. I had considered opening up to Mary about my husband's unfair treatment, but her lack of understanding left me feeling even more alone. If you need anything, just let me know, Mary said before ending the call. But I was left feeling unsettled and unresolved. Then came the breaking point. I woke up that morning feeling feverish, battling aches and occasional waves of nausea. Despite my condition, I pushed through and managed to prepare breakfast for my husband. But as I collapsed onto the couch, he looked at me with disdain and remarked, "You don't need to exaggerate how difficult it is." After he left for work, my health took a turn for the worse, and I realized I wouldn't be able to muster the energy to cook dinner. Should I order takeout? I pondered. No, money's tight. I reminded myself. The funds my husband provided barely covered our expenses, and I found myself dipping into savings every month. With the looming medical costs of childbirth, I worried about our financial stability. Summoning the courage, I called my husband. "I'm really not feeling well today. I'm sorry, but I can't manage dinner. Could you grab something on your way home?" His response cut deep. "What? What are you talking about? You're just a housewife." "But I really can't move. If it's shopping, you should handle it. Don't make your husband do such things," he snapped before abruptly hanging up, leaving me in tears. After a while, I heard the door slam open. My husband had returned. "Hey, Matt, what about dinner?" I asked weakly. "I'm heading out for drinks. I'll eat out." "Don't need dinner?" he dismissed. Feeling feverish and barely able to stand, I pleaded, "I'm really struggling today. I wish you could stay with me." But he brushed me off, saying, "Stop it. Don't get in my way. You're just a housewife. You're probably just faking it as usual," before storming out. Too drained to move, I collapsed at the entrance, silently begging for help in my mind, but the empty house offered no solace. Then, from a distance, I heard a familiar voice calling out to me through the haze of my consciousness, "Stay with me." Who could it be? My consciousness slipped away. When I regained awareness, Mary was by my side, her expression filled with concern as I lay in a hospital bed. "Michelle, oh, thank goodness you're awake," she said with relief. Mary had found me collapsed at home and called an ambulance. "Don't worry, the baby is fine. I'll call the doctor," she'd assured me before quickly leaving the room, wiping away her tears. The doctor informed me that I had severe anemia along with a seasonal cold, which posed risks for the baby. Despite feeling feverish, I was shocked to hear that I had a high fever upon arrival at the hospital. "But how?" Mary questioned me, explaining that she had come over to reprimand me for supposedly slacking off on household chores. After hearing constant complaints from my husband, she decided to check on me and found me collapsed at the entrance. "I'm sorry. I acted harshly without listening to your side," Mary admitted, expressing regret for her earlier judgment. However, there was another reason for her visit. "I wanted to thank you for the gift. That red cardigan suits you so well." It had been Mary's birthday last week, and since I got married, I made sure to send her gifts on both Mother's Day and her birthday. Aware of her increasing sensitivity to cold as she aged, I chose a cardigan this year, stylish yet practical, reflecting her youthful spirit. "I remembered every word you've said, and I truly appreciate the thoughtful gift," Mary acknowledged, her voice trembling with emotion. "I had begun to wonder if you were truly as lazy as my son claimed," she confessed, tears welling up as she apologized for the misunderstanding. "It's all right. I've been wanting to talk to you about my husband, but it's been difficult to find the words," I confessed through tears to Mary. Having her by my side brought some relief to my heavy heart. As we both shed tears, Mary's expression turned to one of fiery anger. "That man, my own son, is unforgivable for letting his pregnant wife suffer like this," she exclaimed, her lips trembling with fury as she tightly clutched her handkerchief. "Michelle, what do you plan to do about your relationship with him?" When I shared my honest thoughts, Mary nodded in solidarity. "I'm here for you, always by your side," she affirmed, her supportive words giving me the courage to take action. After spending a week in the hospital, I was discharged with Mary by my side. Not once did my husband reach out to me during my stay. At that point, I was beyond caring. Upon returning home, I was hit by a repulsive odor, despite having been gone for just 4 days. "What's that smell?" "It's like living with a wild animal," Mary remarked, almost eliciting a chuckle from me, though I held it back. The stench was indeed unbearable. My husband lay sprawled on the living room couch, snoring loudly with drool dribbling from his mouth. "Wake up, you foolish son!" Mary's voice echoed through the room, startling my husband awake instantly. "Huh, Mom, you—" My husband began to protest, but Mary cut him off sharply. Michelle was in the hospital. "What's with this mess? Even a zoo would be cleaner." Mary's observation hit home. In just a week, our home had descended into chaos. Empty beer bottles and food scraps cluttered the sink, damp towels and underwear were strewn about, and the floor was sticky with spilled substances. "It's worse than a zoo. What kind of life have you been living?" I muttered, earning a glare from my husband. "Don't act all righteous. This is all because of you. Even a baby wouldn't create such a mess. You can't do anything on your own, can you?" I stated calmly, recognizing the truth in my words. Reflecting on it, I realized that I had managed the cleaning and laundry quite efficiently when I was at home. It had never resembled a zoo enclosure, and I had never imagined my husband would be so inept at managing life. "Why did you leave, Michelle, and go out?" Mary's imposing presence silenced my husband completely. I couldn't help but think that men always seem to cave in when faced with their mothers, regardless of their age. It's not like that. She was just being childish, telling me not to go out drinking. "Are you suggesting that Michelle, with her high fever and pale face, was faking it? Are you out of your mind?" Even Mary, usually composed, was now scolding him loudly. My husband remained silent, his glare directed at me. I could almost hear his inner voice accusing me of tattling. Then he muttered resentfully, "Don't get ahead of yourself. I've been supporting you all this time." In the past, his words might have intimidated me, but not anymore. "Fine then, I don't need your support anymore. I'm prepared for that. What I'm saying is, I don't need you anymore." What wife would want to stay with a grown man who couldn't take care of himself? I had reached my breaking point with my husband. His verbal abuse was intolerable, something that perhaps could have been resolved through discussion. However, he had crossed another line by leaving me with a high fever to go out for drinks. As his wife lay in the hospital, he transformed our home into a den of filth, failing miserably at the responsibilities of both a husband and a father. "And what were you really doing, suddenly going out for drinks?" I demanded, fixing him with a stern glare. My husband visibly flinched, a comical reaction considering the seriousness of the situation. "That's none of your business," he retorted defensively. "No, it is my business. I'm your mother. I have every right to know. Tell me the truth," Mary asserted firmly, causing my husband to tremble with panic. "If you won't confess, should I present the undeniable evidence?" "Evidence? What do you mean?" His complexion paled as realization dawned on him. "Yes, confess now. You're only making it worse for yourself." Under Mary's unwavering interrogation, he finally hung his head in shame and admitted, "I'm sorry." In essence, he had been having an affair with a coworker since I became pregnant and managing household chores, and his responsibilities became too much for him to handle. "What's her name? Which department? How often did you meet each week?" Mary and I bombarded my husband with questions, capturing the entire confrontation on my mobile phone. "All right, confession evidence collected. Thanks for speaking up so honestly," I said with a smile as I stopped the recording. My husband's expression hardened once more. "You tricked me." "Yes, who would have thought you were actually cheating?" "Thanks to you. We didn't have to hire a detective." "Much appreciated," I replied coolly. "You deceived me," my husband spat out in frustration, trying to shift the blame onto me for his infidelity. His logic was baffling. "You were just pretending to be sick to get my sympathy, weren't you?" he accused. "It's mutual, not even close," I retorted, feeling increasingly despondent as he refused to acknowledge his own faults. Mary let out a deep sigh and muttered, "Selfish, tyrannical, always making excuses. You're just like your father, whom I divorced, you know that?" Dad." My husband was taken aback by Mary's unexpected revelation. "That's true," he admitted quietly, his resentment towards his father resurfacing. His father was infamous for causing trouble when drunk, but my husband never imagined he'd be compared to him. I never got drunk and caused a scene, he protested. But Mary was referring to something deeper. Your father also abandoned me during my pregnancy to go drinking, remember? Sons often mirror their fathers. I should have divorced him before you were old enough to remember. Mary explained, her tone tinged with both disdain and sorrow. My husband was left speechless, frozen in shock. A father who negatively influences his children is better off gone, don't you think, Michelle? Mary turned to me for agreement. Yes, it's unnecessary. In fact, it should be avoided, I concurred. With Mary's valid reasoning for divorce, my husband, still speechless, was handed the divorce papers by me. However, he clung to us desperately. Let's reconsider this. We're going to have a child. Can't we calm down and talk? His pleading tone resembled that of a child begging his mother. What are you saying? That ship has sailed long ago, I replied firmly. So what am I supposed to do now? He asked, covering his face in distress, but still showing some resistance. Mary delivered the final ultimatum. Enough. If you persist in clinging to Michelle, I'll sever our mother-son relationship. What will you choose? Why won't you take my side, Mom? He appeared defeated, while Mary stood resolute by my side until the end. Eventually, I filed for divorce in my 7th month of pregnancy. I hadn't anticipated our relationship deteriorating with the impending arrival of our child, but perhaps it was inevitable. Following the divorce, I moved back to my parents' home and gave birth to a healthy baby boy. My parents were taken aback, having been unaware until my return with a visible pregnancy. The lawyer recommended by my father handled the divorce proceedings, ensuring compensation for the mental and financial distress I endured. Additionally, I made sure the other woman contributed her share post-divorce. Despite my ex-husband's repeated visits to my parents' house, pleading to see the child, I responded with biting sarcasm. When will you fulfill your child support obligations? To which he nonsensically replied, we don't need that. We're family, we belong together. What nonsense. Just fulfill your basic duty as a father. Even if you were a failure as a husband, you still have responsibilities as a parent, or are you even worse than zero in everything? I watched as my husband left, his expression resembling that of someone struck on the head, visibly dejected. His father's influence must have left a lasting mark on him. Word began to circulate that he had resigned from his job. He vented to his colleagues about our divorce, adamantly asserting his innocence, but it backfired spectacularly. Whether he truly believed he was blameless or not, his recounting of the verbal and physical abuse he inflicted on me only fueled disdain from his coworkers. Simultaneously, rumors of his affair with a female coworker spread like wildfire. His reprehensible behavior garnered no sympathy, resulting in his ostracization at work and eventual resignation. Despite his delusions of reconciliation, I harbored no such intentions. Michelle, are you planning to return to work soon? How's your health? A concerned acquaintance inquired. Yes, I'm much better now. I need to work for the sake of my little one. I replied resolutely, that's what being a dependable mom entails. Unbeknownst to my ex-husband, I occasionally meet with Mary and my child. Initially hesitant, Mary insisted that we were strangers after the divorce, but upon hearing my heartfelt gratitude, she gladly held my son. Please guide me as a fellow single mother, I implored. Leave it to me. Let's support each other like comrades or detectives who've vanquished a villain, she responded with a warm smile. Somehow, Mary and I have forged a closer bond than ever before. It's not a bad relationship at all, but at times, I can't help but worry. You're just like your father, Mary's words echo in my mind. Will my child follow in his father's footsteps one day? Is blood truly thicker than water? It's futile to dwell on such thoughts now. It's a concern for the distant future. However, I am resolved to instill in him the values of righteousness, kindness, and empathy. My son is simply my son, nothing more, nothing less. As a mother, my sole purpose is to dedicate my life to nurturing him. As the winter sun gently pierces the cold sky, it feels as though nature itself is cheering me on.